Hey Kyle, how are you doing today?
Excellent, Ken. Great to see you again, my friend.
So I know we were thinking about what to do on today's show, and one of our dear viewers, wrote in, Jenna, and she said that she really enjoyed the piece we did during the last live show about the massive transformative purpose. And
Right.
not only that we were able and willing to share it a little bit, we didn't really go into detail, but also she said, and it was a great question, she said, how did you get there? How did you get to your MTP? So I thought today that you and I should go about explaining to people what our MTPs are, maybe what an MTP is,
Mhm.
and how we got to our own. What do you think?
I think that's excellent idea. Let's get started.
Go ahead and kick us off, and I'll add in a little bit too, because I've got this background with exponential organizations and all the team over there that are doing those things at Opening Excel.
Yeah, actually, MTP, this is one of my most favorite topics with our work. Same as you can. With our work, we get to work with executives and organizations all over the world, actually helping them figure out what their purpose is. Like, what is their reason for being, why they're here? MTP stands for Massive Transformative Purpose, meaning like if you have a purpose, which is like here's my reason for being, here is why I think I'm in this world, here is what I believe I'm put on this earth to do. How do we make it that it is transformational, that you're
Mm.
leaving the world better than you found it? And the massive thing is, how do you take on a challenge that would actually start to help not just yourself, advance in life, but everybody else around you, and society or your community advance. So that massive transformative purpose, one of my absolute most favorite topics, because I find that if we know what we're here to do, even if you, and it changes, purposes change over lifetimes. But if you have some inkling of why you're here, it wakes you up every day motivated, driving forward. You're there to make impact, you're there to make change, and it just opens up a life of abundance. So that's a bit of a headline for me. What else would you add to that,
I
Ken?
think that people really get stuck on this. The thing that I run into when people say, "Oh wow, you have an MTP, a massive transformative purpose. How do I get one of those?" And I think, well, okay, well, so I walk them through, and maybe we can get into some of this stuff today about how we kick people off on the journey of finding their MTP as well as
Yeah.
talking about our own. But I find that this is actually really hard sometimes for people. And the thing that I like to tell people more than anything is don't get in a hurry, right? You spent your whole life to get to where you are now. Why do you think you have to get your MTP right today? It's just a couple of, I mean, it's okay if it takes a little time. In my case, it took me a couple of months once I knew what my purpose was to whittle it down to the 4 words that it is today and for it really to become a guiding light for me. I've seen it take other people 6 months, 9 months, a year. The thing is, though, when it hits you, it's like a wake up call. I mean,
Yeah.
it hits you like right upside the face, and you're like, that's it. And then you gotta stop whatever you're doing and write it down. Because the worst thing would be is if you were busy or too busy and you let that go and you lost it. But that's how it was for me anyway. I'll share a little bit about when I knew I found my purpose. It was a pretty personal moment about business and my life, and I'll share that in just a second. Anything else on that?
Yeah, I love what you just said there. For myself, what I've found is that when we're trying to force it, it takes longer to get it, because then it just becomes
Mm.
words on a page. It just becomes like things that we grab from anywhere. It actually requires a bit of a journey inward, I believe. I believe that you've got to go and
Hmm.
you've got to like tune into the heart. You've got to tune into the mind. And part of the process when we're working with people to help them form theirs, it's actually to reflect pretty deeply on where you've been and some of the fundamentals of your life. But then also, if you could imagine yourself 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and you were just living, even if it felt light years from where you are, the resources you have, or the current situation, if you imagine the life you'd like to be living, break that down into some components. So there's this sort of retrocasting imagination piece, and there's this future casting, this foresight piece comes together. But that is, and then there's
Mm.
this going inside, really believing in that you have the ability to achieve it. When you do that, something kind of dislodges, and then the meaning of the words that are starting to show up in your mind I still think that some of this comes from source. Where we have no idea where creativity comes from. It just comes. These ideas show up. I believe that we're gifted some of these things to remember that, hey, I'm on the right path. These clues, these symbols, these signs, those kinds of things. But when we tune in, we actually see those things showing up a little more. You get a feeling of like, I'm on or I'm off what I should be doing. And your intuition knows. So it's, as you're about to probably explain, it's a very, very personal thing. It's different for everybody, and it should be. It's like a fingerprint. It's not.
It
it's
is.
not the same
You
thing.
just said something I hadn't
fingerprint.
really thought of in exactly that way before. This idea that you're retrocasting, so you're reflecting on the past, right? This already happened, it's done, you can't change it. But then you're also future casting. Some people call that future pacing. Some people call that back casting. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but you're imagining that better place that from wherever you are, that improvement that you'd like to see in the world. The thing between now and then is a gap, and you need to fill that gap. The idea that the future casting and the retro casting meet at a singular moment in time where you are right then, which is the right time for you, and that you shouldn't force that, that's one hell of an idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a powerful process, because what people forget is, in my experience, we don't fully forget. It kind of gets stored in our internal database system. But what we forget to realize sometimes is that, there's this wonderful quote, which is that we are the sum of every good and bad day we've ever had till today, and we've got through it. But what we don't do very often is review the good stuff that happened or the bad stuff that happened, and what did we learn out of that?
That's a practice, isn't it? You have to make that a practice.
You have to make that a practice, because there's actually incredible personal power in that. Like, if you think, what was one of my greatest successes and achievements? What did I get out of that? Did I get grit and determination? Did I get fortitude? Did I get ambition? Did I get something there? Did my creativity play out in my really bad situation? I had resilience. I had courage. And what's kind of interesting is, if we look back through our life that way, you actually realize we have a toolbox. We've got so much going for us, and there are patterns that show up. There are signs and patterns that show up.
Yeah.
But it's something that people neglect to kind of do very often, which we really try and invite. That's part of going within, like, who am I? That existential question. I always think of Zoolander when
I think of ancient Greek philosophers, but okay.
But that piece, when you ask that question and you start to just write what shows up, you'll be very, very surprised about how much you really know. We just don't make the time for that, which is so critical to do.
So let's take the next, say, 10 minutes max, and we'll talk about our personal MTPs. I'll go first because we talked about this, and I said mine is very personal, because one of the tools in that toolbox that you just mentioned is the massive transformative purpose. I think it's a lighthouse light, and it can be a gravity well or a guiding principle. It can be a lot of things. So I'll share mine. So again, to share with everybody watching, my MTP, my massive transformative purpose, is to empower people with technology. Now, this comes from a long history of my own explorations with technology, my capabilities with technology. I have natural predilection for digging deep, and I just really love it. I love everything about it. But what I realized at a certain point in my life, and that point in my life was at the end of a business. So a business that I did love, and when I started it, I was very passionate about this. I really, really invested heavily in this business. So fiscally, emotionally, I had a lot wound up in this. It was me, right? And of course, they warn you when you start a business to be careful about those sorts of things, because maybe it's not a business anymore if it gets a little too personal. But in this case, I did let it really deep right inside. And so as that business went on, we found ourselves not making it effectively, right? We had our investors, we had our employees, we had our vision, and ultimately our failure was product market fit, a bit of over engineering, if you like, because and this is an important point, because technology, if you know how to build really complex technology, the question is not should you do it. The question is, if you do it, does it matter, right? Because you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to prematurely scale And we probably did go a little too far, putting the cart before the horse. And when you do that, you end up spending money faster than you should. And, you know, you've got all your teams, so you've got this burn rate. Well, we just could not get our client base and our market segmentation to accept. We could always get them to run a trial, okay? Always. No problem. We could talk them into trial. We could even show them clearly with data that it worked.
Right.
Not a problem. But they were scared of our technology. And the fact that they were scared of our technology, this is an early form of AI, meant that there was no way they were going to buy it. It didn't matter how good it was. Nobody wants to buy something that scares the Jesus out of them, right? I mean, they're just not going to do it. And we couldn't wrap our heads around why. So anyway, fast forward through all of that, dealing with all the issues that come with letting all your staff go, with not being able to pay off all your bills, with disappointing your investors. And then that last day, this is where my MTP came from. That very last day, I was in the office. It was just a mess because I had a truck, my own truck out in the front, backed up to the steps. And I had been taking out files, computers, the phone system, the routers, all the stuff that I thought I might need later should I find a way to start another business, because I clearly am an entrepreneurial addict. But the reality is that it was all fine. I was just dismantling the office, putting everything in, drop a chair, drop a desk, whatever. And it was just me. Nobody was left. I had no help. It was getting dark, and it was time to drive home. So you've got your key. You don't need it anymore. So you shut the office door for the last time. You look up at that plaque on the wall and you're like, all right, bye. Then you walk out the door, drop the key in the mailbox like you told the landlord you would do, who frankly owed money in that case, and get in the truck. And I'm like, okay, so this is like a whirlwind of repressed emotions at this point. And so then you start driving home. And this is me at this time. I was doing this. It starts raining. You're like, oh, this sucks. All my stuff's in the back. It's raining. Did it really have to rain right now? And that's what kind of triggered me. And I have to admit I shed a few tears here, because it just hit me just what I had lost. I had lost all that hope, all that promise, all the things that we were when we started came to that one moment in time. And I swore to myself right then and right there in that truck on that rainy highway, trying to get to my house, to get that stuff out of the back of my truck, really upset, sad that I had to lay everybody off, sad that my business partners were gone, all of this, right? It was just terrible. And I just swore to myself that never again would I build technology for technology's sake, right? What I would do is I would build technology to solve real problems, right? Real problems. And by real problems, what I learned a little bit before this was about impact. And I can be, as a lot of people that start businesses can be, once we set our sights on something, it's hard to turn us away, and that's okay. But it took this moment, this really sort of crushing, frankly, emotional moment, for me to go, all right, the next time I build something, it's going to matter. And it's going to matter to a lot of people. It's going to empower people. Awesome. And then empower people with technology was born right then, right there. I went home. I took a couple of days off, and I put up my MTP on my personal website, and that's all I've been doing ever since. This is about 5 years ago. So since then, a lot has transpired. I've gotten to build a lot of amazing things, help a lot of incredible entrepreneurs. I went through a lot of personal development work. I don't know if someday we talk about it on this show or not, but just really, to your point, you have to look inside. You got to deal with what the problems are on the inside. And that's where I'll leave it. That's how I found my MTP.
Awesome. That's a great share. Thank you. It's so powerful. I think that a lot of the time these MTPs are born out of the struggle. And sometimes I think it's life or our destiny or something, if we want to get a little, spiritual on that one, kind of course correcting us, which was like, nope, I know it's a hard thing, you have to deal with it, but like that door's going to close, but this other one is going to open, like that rainy day in the truck. It was like, wait, there was like, okay, I got you in a quiet space. I've cleared all this other stuff away. Like, shoot, here, remember, this is what you got to do. I think that's powerful. For me, Mine's been evolving. And it's only quite recently that the words kind of found a new sense of structure. But it's in a very similar way, a similar pattern or path that you took, which for myself, when I started to discover the idea of purpose, I fell in love with it. I went through the process of it, getting kind of there. There was a piece which my thing was always about trying to solve impossibilities. It was like getting breakthroughs. I wanted to be in the room where the tough conversations were happening. I always wanted to be in these struggling situations where we could find a way through and like really like rally together and drive through. And there was always something around that. And the words would shift and shake. And there was this thing about breaking through impossible, to break through impossible. And I realized that we ended up launching our business around that. And it was only a couple of years into the business that we have right now that I realized that, much like how you started this, which was when you are fully personally invested in your business and yourself are the same identity, or you almost identifying too much with your business, that can be a problem for health and for life and for everything else, because what happens if it goes away? What happens if it's not going well? You suddenly take it on a lot more personally. So I started this process of realizing, oh, I got this realization that's for the business, because as the business grew, other people
it wasn't your MTP. That's what you're saying.
It's like, oh, I love this. And I thought, like, I have to be involved in everything. I got to be everywhere because it's me. It's like my thing. It's my purpose. And then I realized, no, look, that's not going to scale at all. And then I realized that isn't my thing. Like, my thing was feeding it. But as this bubbled up and we built the business out of it, my own path sort of stopped because we doubled down on growing and scaling. So it was only recently where I went back into that process. There's actually a really great book that I was reading called Vivid Vision by Cameron Harold. And
we'll put it in the show notes.
it actually looks like this. Cameron Harold, Vivid Vision.
Oh, there you go. All
it's a great reminder for anybody wanting to play with it. And we would, Kent and I can absolutely help you nail your MTPs as well. But what I realized with this one was my 3 words that showed up are activate human potential. My thing was, I realized that where I get my greatest joy was working with people and believing in them and believing in their ideas when they looked at the world and said, like, I don't know how to get there. So it's similar, but it's like, but to activate their potential. I see the world, I see the potential in the world, I see the potential in human species and everyone around me. I know we got blocks. I know we've lost our way. I know we've forgotten ourselves somewhere along the line. And sometimes people are locked into lives and the idea to get themselves unlocked to go after that big thing they really want to go after is so scary. They will sacrifice their dreams, or they will downplay it, or they won't take those things and kind of stick with the comfortable or stick with the thing because they know they have the security in it. And what happens is that there's a lot of regret that I see showing up in executives or in lives, because I've got to work with a bunch of people that have the best careers, and then they got part of layoffs or the business folded or something like that. And then suddenly they're sitting there with this crisis saying, well, who am I? What am I? What am I supposed to do? They haven't figured their thing out because it was all wrapped up in this thing that they thought they should be doing. And then realizing, deep down, I've always wanted to do this thing. And I'm like, wow, I heard that so often that I was like, activating people's potential, activating human potential.
Sorry if I may, it was your journey through helping unlock human potential, or it was your journey through the work with your business, and then that led you to, it probably wasn't discovery, it was almost rediscovery. It was already in there, but you got the 3 words, and that's something people really get hung up on a lot. So that's really cool. Were there any other sort of like aha moments or things like that just was, or maybe even an aha moment since you've had that MTP?
Absolutely. The biggest aha moment is that the words can change. It's like a proximity to something, but the map isn't the territory. Like, you don't have to get hung up on it. But what I've felt is my aha is that there's so many human beings in this world, and there's so many more being born, and there's and let's say we go and discover other planets, as we explore into Mars, like it's impossible to ever live this out fully. All I can do is show up in my day-to-day and be the best version of myself, and show up and be in service of as many people as I can, like this show. Be in service of many people as I can, and that in some ways living it out. So it doesn't have to be one of these things where it's like, I got to sell billions and billions of things, you know. It's like, if I could just show up to my family well, if I could just show up to my local community as best as I could, even smaller than that, if I could just figure out my own household or my own business and impact those folk, you're living it. But what I'm realizing is that I'm living it by focusing on the smallest acts each day that I could to be a better person for myself, better person for my family, for my community. That living it out, this idea of like activating human potential, or just activating potential, showing up and being present for the smallest things, is living it out. It doesn't. Awesome. I always thought it had to be massive and transformative, which it should be, because that's the word, massive, transformative. But actually, the purpose itself is huge in my mind, but it has to start small too.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a great share as well. What you just shared with me that I honestly wasn't thinking about at all was it's in the small things too. And that's forcing me to reflect a little bit on the last couple of days of my life, where we've made some decisions about how to sort of manage our household in the face of the global pandemic that is coronavirus. And it's amazing. So empowering people with technology, for me, it's in the big and the small. And thanks for reminding me that. That was really fantastic.
And just to second yours here too, is that the fact that we're doing this and that you've helped set up this platform up, you know, you are empowering others. Hopefully somebody watching this and learning from this will take advantage of what they've heard here today and this particular medium platform, and realize that there are so many ways for you to make an impact. There's so many ways for you to do something that is transformative and massive, even if you're just sitting here alone talking to your computer.
Yeah, right.
You're making an impact, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
That's digitized. When we came up with this concept, we said digitize. What's it for? It will help people unlock their digital potential. And that's what we're trying to do every day. And I think with that, what's the next episode going to be about?
The next episode is going to be about, why does digitizing your business matter, and how can you go about starting that journey if you haven't already started it? And Kent and I are very excited to support you all the way through on this one.
Awesome. And with that, we are a wrap.